There are many different ways of coming up with an idea. In this video, I will tell you about different techniques that work for me. I have a prompt book where I write down individual words that I come up with and I number them. And I usually use the Google number generator and generate 3 numbers and that way also 3 words. I will then brainstorm different character ideas by writing everything down that comes to mind based on these 3 words. There will be thoughts like, oh, this is stupid, or this isn't creative at all, but trust me, write everything down that you come up with. And if you don't end up using every word, but you stumbled upon a nice idea on the way, then you reached your goal. You got an idea of what to draw. One of my favorite character sketches is based on a very weird prompt. If I remember correctly, I had to work with pumpkins, and I ended up drawing a pumpkin boy based on the weird clothes that some of the guys wore when storming the parliament in the US. Sometimes I also catch myself regenerating numbers after numbers because I am like, oh, what am I supposed to do with that? But deep down, I know that those word combinations that sound very weird in the beginning can lead to the best outcomes. I can only recommend you to give it a try. I also love the fact that these are all my personal words that I, for whatever reason, had to think about while writing them down in my book. Once I am done with writing the initial words that come to my mind, I will try to come up with different stories, settings, sceneries, or characters that are inspired by the words. The keyword here is inspired. Don't try to force yourself to use those generated words only. Try to use them more as a first thought or as an inspiration. I will try to write down up to 3 or 4 different ideas and then choose one. Some days I come up with many different ideas that I like, and some days I come up with none, and that is pretty normal and you have to be okay with that. In this case, I had 4 ideas, and while I was doing the exercise you will see next, I developed one of them a little bit further. Sometimes I like to lay down and just turn on some music. That helps me to imagine a character, a world, or a scene. In this case, I just listened to music sitting at my desk. That felt more comfortable at that moment. If you are interested in what I was listening to, I discovered this amazing musician, Iniko, and I really love 2 of her songs that I listen to. One is The King's Affirmation and the other one is Jericho, and if you don't know these songs, please listen to them. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I initially wanted to come up with new ideas without thinking about the prompts while doing this exercise, but I was so stuck with one of the ideas that I developed with the technique before, so I couldn't stop developing it further and further, but more on that specific idea later in the video. Another way of brainstorming is that I like to go outside and look around me, trying to be open to be hit by inspiration. I will then try to use that inspiration and brainstorm based on that again. You will never know what object, shape, shadow, or building will spark an idea. I had so many ideas already based on things I saw while looking around. It doesn't even matter to me if I execute those ideas, it's just cool to get those ideas. It's so important for your creativity. I know that some of us are shy and don't like to actively look around. I know that you guys exist, I've been there, but still try to soak everything in. I know it's difficult, but you can start simple by going on a small walk for this exact purpose and maybe set your timer for, I don't know, 10 minutes. Trust me, the time will come where this will feel natural and you will see everything with the eyes of an artist every time. Be curious. I also talked about this in my Romanticize Your Life video, so be sure to check that out if you are interested in this. If I'm struggling with coming up with an idea, I will try to do something where I can let my brain wander around. I really love to sit on the bus or be a passenger while someone else is driving the car. I also don't have my driver's license, so that is another issue. Put your phone away for that. That is very easy for me because I can't sit in a car and stare at something in my hands. It makes me feel so sick. So I have to look out the window anyways and let my thoughts wander around. This also helps me to problem solve when I already know what I want to draw or what kind of character I want to draw. I fixed all the issues of the character that I am the most proud of while sitting in a car and just thinking about it. I will show you some pictures of that character on the screen now. Once I have a rough idea of what I want to draw, I will start sketching out my ideas and redefine them. I will choose one of all the ideas and continue on from that. There are also many other things that you can do to get inspired. For example, watch a movie, or you could look at art books, or read a book, learn something new and implement it. The most important part is that you open yourself up for ideas. You can walk around and get an idea based on someone you saw walking down the street. I had so many ideas for characters that I also sketched in my sketchbook just by seeing people around me doing their daily business. It's so interesting to see who lives in your city or town and what their stories are. Don't be stuck in your head and really try to soak everything around you in. Once I am refining everything, I ask myself specific questions about the character that I will draw. I like to think about how the character would talk, what would they say, why would they say something like that, what they've been through, what they like to do. Sometimes I come up with whole storylines or parts of their life and I will write those short stories down. Sometimes I will come up with nothing at all and I will just draw characters because I like the shape or something specific that they are wearing. Writing was always something that I liked to do. Years ago, I started to write a book and built a whole world, but after chapter 10, I stopped writing it. Somehow, I quit writing for a couple of years, but I picked it up again a few months ago and it comes in pretty handy with designing characters and understanding what you're doing and who you are drawing. I have this thing where I know that an idea is fully developed once I have, first, no questions about logic left to answer, and second, I can imagine them talking and moving, and how they would interact with other people. That's when they feel real and completed. If you want to know more about the questions and logic behind a character, I would definitely recommend you to check out my first portfolio project video on my channel. Once I am done with the writing and idea gathering part, I will jump into the first drawing part. I will sketch out the first ideas that I have without references, and these are supposed to be very rough, and I don't care about the outcome at all. Usually I will gather references based on the sketches and the vibe that I like the most in the first drawings, but because this character was supposed to be just a small character sketch sheet, I decided to skip this part and jumped straight into the reference gathering and first brainstorm part, which I kept very short. As I mentioned, this was supposed to be something very small and not something where I spend too much time thinking about the character. Because I'm trying to get used to work on Photoshop, I will then make a mood board and start working on the final design on Photoshop. And let me tell you, if you are used to Procreate, Photoshop can be very confusing, but I'm slowly getting more and more used to it. I still miss my flat brush and the way it smudges the paint. And I hope I will find something that will replace that flat brush for me because I'm so used to working with it and I miss it so much. For the more developed brainstorm part, I will usually do something about 3 to 5 still rougher design ideas and then pick out one of these to fully develop. As mentioned, I kept everything very simple with this character. The next step is that I like to put more life into my character and plan out the final layout of the spreads. The last part is one of my biggest weaknesses, so I will plan out everything beforehand. To bring the character to life, I will decide on a couple of poses and then place these on the layout. Once I'm done with that step, I can start working on the character poses. This character lives in the world that I created for my portfolio project. He lives in the village where all the other characters in the series live as well. That village is being attacked by beings that are invisible to the human eye, but they can show themselves by changing their form and imitating other living beings. To protect the village from being tricked by those beings, the soldiers have to cover their faces so no evil-minded creature can copy their face or their form in general. This character here fights by using wind power and forming it into shapes like an arrow or a bow. The soldiers are placed at the wall that protects the city, and to make those invisible creatures more visible, there are these built-in water sprinklers, and the same thing with sand, so the creatures are being wet and then you can sprinkle on sand so the sand will stick on the skin. And so something that is invisible can be a little bit more visible. While I was writing this idea down, I also had this scene in my mind of The Incredibles, where Violetta, I don't know how she's called in the English version, is underwater and the guy is throwing in some sand in the water to make her more visible. I struggled a lot with the second full body pose, and I also redrew it off camera. You will see later how the final version looks. I also got some feedback by my professor, who is also, by the way, I'm mentioning this because this is important, he's not an artist. I'm not studying anything related to art, but it's just a project that I can do for university because they are so kind to let me do something art related instead of shooting a movie or making a game. So he gave me some feedback that some of the proportions are off. The last step would be to decide on the final colors. With this character, I tried to keep everything very simple, and I also wanted to keep everything toned down a little bit more and more to the pastel-y side of things. I think he's still a little bit too dark. Maybe I will change that up, but I will show you the final version at the end of the video. But keeping everything simple also means no rendering at all, no shadows, nothing like that, just very simple. I like to be inspired by my mood board or certain pictures or objects when it comes to colors. I also have a free app on my phone where I can create a color palette, for example, when I'm on my way somewhere and I still want to be productive. This is no ad. I discovered the app Coolers, I think it's called, when I was frustrated with a character. I had to go somewhere, but I still wanted to figure out the colors for this character that I was so frustrated with. So I searched for an app that would make this process easier for me, and I just typed in color wheel or color. I don't even know what I typed in, but I just looked for something like that on the App Store. I found the app that I talked about on the iOS App Store, so I don't know if there is something like that on the Android store, but probably there is something like that. I will also write down the name of the app in the description, but this is no edit at all. But I know we are artists. We love things that are free and that can help us with coming up with ideas or problem solving. And now, once I'm done with choosing the colors, I will also lay down the flat colors. I love how quickly I was done with this character. It really motivates me to do more quick sketch sheets like this in the future. I know there are things that I don't like, but that only shows me what I can improve on. So I will try to work on these weaknesses. But overall, I am very happy with the outcome. Fun fact, the guy also ended up looking like my brother. I swear this wasn't the intention. Anyways, this is how I come up with ideas for my characters. I hope you enjoyed this video and you took something out of it as well, and I will see you next week.